Bur now represents humble participation. You no longer feel separate from ordinary life, nor above it. You stand within it, fully engaged, without resistance. Work is work. Rest is rest. Both are honored. Bhuva softens emotional edges even more. You still feel joy, sadness, concern, and care, but none of them hijack clarity. Emotions inform, they do not command. This emotional balance creates deep reliability. Svaha expresses itself as gratitude without condition. Not gratitude because things are good, but gratitude because understanding is present even when things are uncertain. This gratitude stabilizes the heart. Tat Savitar Varenium on the 11th part reveals intelligence as simplicity. You notice that the most accurate responses are often the simplest ones. Overthinking fades. Complexity gives way to clarity. Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi continues refining at a microscopic level. Subtle impatience, quiet self-importance, unconscious comparison, these dissolve naturally as awareness catches them early. There is no struggle, only recognition. Dyo yo na prakadayat becomes effortless alignment. Guidance does not feel like instruction anymore. It feels like instinct shaped by wisdom. You trust it. In modern terms, this stage reflects inner reliability. You can be trusted, with responsibility, with influence, with silence. You are steady even when others are uncertain. You also become comfortable with not knowing. Mystery no longer threatens you. Questions can remain open without creating anxiety. This openness keeps understanding alive. Service on the 11th part is relational. You listen deeply. You respond honestly. You support without controlling. Presence itself becomes supportive. The Gayatri Mantra now feels less like a practice and more like an internal atmosphere. It colors perception gently, consistently, without effort. You stop identifying as someone on a path. Life itself feels like the path. Every interaction becomes meaningful, not because it is SP. On the 10th part, OM is no longer something you return to, it is something you remain in. Awareness does not switch on and off. Even distraction is noticed without judgment. You come back naturally, without effort. Bur now represents grounded presence in ordinary life. There is no need to escape into spirituality. Daily actions, working, resting, speaking, listening, are all part of practice. Nothing is excluded. Nothing is rejected. Bhuva becomes emotional transparency. Feelings arise and pass without resistance. You do not suppress, dramatize, or identify with them. This creates inner freedom. Peace is no longer fragile. Svaha completes surrender. Not surrender as loss, but surrender as trust. You trust your training. You trust your clarity. You trust life's intelligence working through you. Tat Savitar Varenium on the 10th part reveals the simplest truth: illumination is natural when resistance is gone. You stop trying to be wise. Wisdom expresses itself. Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi finishes its work as purification gives way to clarity. There is little inner conflict left to burn. Attention is clean. Intention is clear. Dyo yo na prakadayat settles into steady guidance. Decisions arise calmly. You do not second-guess alignment. Even when outcomes are uncertain, direction feels right. In modern language, this is coherence. Thought, word, and action are no longer in conflict. You do not feel divided between who you are and how you live. Service now happens effortlessly. You help without strain. You lead without force. You influence without intention to influence. This is quiet authority. The Gayatri Mantra is no longer recited for change, it is remembered as truth. Silence carries the same power as sound. Presence does the work words once did, you no longer measure progress. You notice stability. Life may still change, but your center does not shift easily. The 10th part teaches that fulfillment is not achievement. It is alignment sustained over time. There is who. Service on the 8th part is often invisible. You strengthen foundations. You support systems. You stabilize processes others depend on, even if they never know your name. The Gayatri Mantra now feels less like a guide and more like an internal climate. It influences everything without demanding attention. This is deep integration. You become comfortable with paradox. You can hold confidence and humility together. Conviction and openness coexist. This balance prevents extremism. Praise and criticism both pass through you lightly. Neither inflates nor deflates direction. Values remain consistent. The eighth part also brings reconciliation with past versions of yourself. You no longer judge earlier mistakes harshly. You recognize them as necessary learning. Compassion extends backward. You begin to trust slow growth. You respect the unseen work happening beneath the surface. Patience becomes natural. At this stage, wisdom is quiet but resilient. It bends without breaking. It adapts without losing core truth. And a subtle realization emerges. Clarity does not need to be loud to be powerful. The eighth part prepares you for completion, not as an ending, but as coherence. Everything learned begins to align into a single, steady way of being. On the eighth part, OM becomes timeless awareness. You are less disturbed by urgency. You understand cycles, how things rise, mature, decline, and renew. This understanding removes panic. You no longer rush clarity. You allow it to unfold. Bur now represents embodied wisdom. What you know is visible in how you live. Your routines reflect intention. Your priorities reflect understanding. There is less contradiction between belief and behavior. Bhuva refines perception even further. You notice nuance. You recognize half-truths, emotional manipulation, and surface-level certainty. Discernment becomes sharp without becoming cynical. You see clearly without losing compassion. Svaha deepens surrender into acceptance of impermanence. You stop clinging to roles, phases, or identities that have served their purpose. Letting go becomes graceful, not painful. Change feels natural. Tat Savitar Varenium on the eighth part reveals intelligence as adaptability. You no longer insist that truth must appear the same in every context. You honor essence over form. This flexibility allows wisdom to survive changing environments. Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi now purifies attachment to outcomes at an even finer level. Even the need for impact loosens. You contribute fully, but you are at peace whether results are visible or delayed. This creates quiet endurance. Dio Yo Na Prakadayat becomes long-view guidance. You think in generations, not moments. Decisions are informed by sustainability, mental, emotional, ethical. Short-term gain loses its appeal. In modern terms, the eighth part develops longevity of clarity. You do not burn out. You do not become rigid. You remain responsive without becoming reactive. Silence here becomes creative. In stillness, insight surfaces naturally. You no longer chase answers, they arise when space is given. On the sixth part, OM becomes continuity. Whether the day is calm or chaotic, your inner tone remains steady. You are not starting over every morning. Alignment carries forward. This is spiritual maturity. Bur now represents grounded leadership. People may come to you for guidance without fully knowing why. Your stability creates safety. You do not dominate conversations, you anchor them. You understand that leadership is presence before it is instruction. Bhuva deepens empathy without absorption. You feel others' struggles, but you do not drown in them. Compassion remains strong, but boundaries remain intact. This balance allows you to help without burning out. Svaha evolves into trust in timing. You stop forcing outcomes. You move decisively when action is required and wait patiently when waiting is wiser. This rhythm prevents regret. Tat Savitar Varenium on the sixth part reveals a higher perspective. Intelligence is not just knowing what is right, but knowing when and how to act. Wisdom becomes situational, flexible, and humane. Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi now refines intention at a subtle level. Even good actions are examined. You ask yourself, am I acting from clarity or from habit? From service or from identity? This keeps growth honest. Dio Yo Na Prakadayat becomes a long-term alignment. You think in years, not impulses. Choices are evaluated for their ripple effect, on family, community, and future self. In modern terms, the sixth part builds sustainability. You no longer grow fast and crash. You grow steadily and remain grounded. Discipline is no longer effortful, it is natural. At this stage, silence becomes deeply restorative. You do not fear stillness. You value it. Insight often arises not during action, but during pause. Service on the sixth part becomes legacy-driven. You invest in things that will outlast your involvement. You mentor, support, and build structures rather than chasing recognition. The Gayatri mantra here acts like an internal compa.